You're listening to the Kin to Kin podcast, where we students by sharing stories of those who have walked the halls before them. We aim to bring change through the sharing of our lived experiences. I am your host, Dr. Kimberly Broughton. Thank you so much for tuning into the Kin to Kin podcast. I am Dr. Kimberly Broughton, and today I have a special guest joining me. I have the pleasure of speaking with Ms. Krystal Currie. Krystal is a motivational speaker, social worker, therapist, podcaster, and mental health advocate who values passion, purpose, and mental health. From sunny South Florida, Krystal grew up with a desire to not only help people, but to also be a voice for those who haven't yet found their voice and are seeking to first understand healing and wholeness. Welcome to the podcast, Krystal.
Hi, so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me and for being willing to share your experience with pursuing higher education. I've spoken with quite a few Black students during my time in school and afterwards, and there remains to be many gaps between recruiting Black students for educational institutions and having sufficient means for actually retaining them and graduating them.
Yeah.
And part of that problem, I believe, is because diversity and inclusion are often relegated to data points or numbers and not human beings who are systemically disadvantaged and deserve to be viewed holistically in order to even truly begin thinking about DEI efforts. And so I say all of that to say today's conversation is really important and holds a lot of value, especially to current and incoming Black students. And we know that the Black experience is not monolithic, and the same goes for the Black student experience as well. So thank you so much for joining me and for being willing to give us your experience with college.
Yes, I'm excited to get into it.
Great. So before we actually start, I have a little surprise that you knew nothing about. We're going to start this off with a fun, lighthearted, but still relevant game of culture tags, which
Okay.
my family and I love. Have you played
Okay.
it before?
I have not, but I've heard of it.
Okay, good. So for those of you who may not have heard of Culture Tags, it's a Black-owned game created by Unique Jones Gibson, where you basically guess a phrase based off of acronyms. And these phrases are popular sayings within culture. So hashtags, Black Twitter, the Black church, 90s music, TV and film, and other topics. And so I will show you an acronym. We're only going to do one. And between the both of us, we will have 30 seconds for me to give you hints and for you to guess what the acronyms stand for. Okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so in about 5 seconds, the acronym will show up. For those that are listening, I will read the letters and then start giving hints. Again, we only have 30 seconds before the answer shows up. Okay. Here we go. All right. So the letters are ANGTFT. So this is a saying that became popular about 10 years ago by a lady named Sweet Brown, where her apartment caught on fire and she's talking to the news station telling them,
ain't nobody got time for that.
Yes. Ain't nobody got time for that. That was great. That was good. All right. Ain't nobody got time for that. And so what we certainly do not have time for today is not featuring the experiences of Black students, okay?
Yes.
This is important as we work towards a holistic approach to including Black students in higher education. And that's why we have you here today, Krystal.
Yes.
So I want you to start us off with giving an overview of your academic background. So where did you go to undergraduate school, graduate school, and what was your field of study?
So I had the great pleasure of studying social work for both my master's and my bachelor's degree. Undergrad, I went to the only HBCU in South Florida, which is Florida Memorial University. And I went on to get my master's degree from Barry University, which is a PWI, small private PWI, also in South Florida. Both were great experiences, but vastly different. So I'll just say that for now.
Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to get into that.
Yes.
So, what was the narrative that you received about education or college growing up in your community?
So growing up in my household, it was me, my sister, and my mom. We were just, that was our trifecta. My dad was around, but I didn't grow up in the house with him. He didn't go to college. My mom didn't really go to college. She took a few courses, but didn't really complete. Both had great jobs. But for me, growing up in South Florida with my trifecta, my sister really was the first close person to me that I knew. I was seeing go through the whole application process, visiting schools, going to see her. She went to FAMU, which is Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University in Tallahassee, Florida. So that I feel like I kind of went through that experience with her. We went on the college tour. It was my first time really going and experiencing what I call back then like a Black school. I was like, oh my gosh, like
Okay.
this is awesome. Like it was amazing to me. And it was huge school. You know, we walked, we did the tour, and I'm like, I'm exhausted, but this is fun. Like it's beautiful to see that this is the culture. Like this is where my sister's gonna go. I kind of thought she earned more cool points from me at that moment because I'm like, wow, you're getting ready to go to this school. And then I was like, you get to be away from home, like, you know, all the things. It was just so amazing. And I think one of the things that probably reeled us all in, you know, my sister was in the band in high school. And to give you just background on our high school, we both went to the same high school, and it wasn't predominantly white. Well, I guess I can say that it was kind of predominantly white and Hispanic. And then you had your mixture of Black kids, but it was in a fairly good neighborhood, you know, really privileged kids. Me and my sister kind of stumbled upon going to this school because my mom was fortunate enough to buy a house that was like a block away from the school. But it was my mom, single mother, working multiple jobs at one point to just support and give us a life that she really never had when she was younger. So we were fortunate enough to go to this school, be in the mix of these kids, and we really didn't have that culture experience in high school. So it was very ironic to me that my sister ended up going to an HBCU. You know, she's in the school band, and it's very, um, it's not HBCU band. So when she wanted to go to FAMU, my initial thought was surely she's going to go into the band because the band we watched them practice, and I was mesmerized. I'm like, you have to be in this band. Like I've never wanted to go to any other of your performances, but you have to be in this band. You know, unfortunately, fortunately, she decided to major in pharmacy, so she's a doctor of pharmacy,
Okay.
and her coursework would have been too rigorous for her to be in the band.
Mhm.
And I still think to this day it kind of breaks her heart because that music is her first love. So, but to answer your question, for me, seeing my sister dive deep into the culture of FAMU, I still am in awe to this day because she is a avid supporter of her HBCU. She supports her,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
her, you know, her pharmacy alumni program. She gives back to the pharmacy program. She's at every classic, every home. Like if she can go and if she can buy and support, she is there. So when I think about Black excellence and supporting HBCUs and what HBCU really means to the community, I really have to give thanks to my sister because she started that in me. Had it not been for her, you know, I really wouldn't have thought about an HBCU because we didn't grow up knowing about it. We didn't understand what it was. When she came back home and said, "Yeah, HBCU," I was like, "What is that?" Like I don't even know what you're talking about. So I really have to give thanks to her because if it had not been for her, I do not believe that I would have even thought about, oh, HBCU. Yeah, I want to go to an HBCU. It just wouldn't have been on my mind because even when we had college tours at my high school, majority of the colleges were PWIs.
Mhm.
Florida Memorial was just one of the HBCUs, and it was like a little small, you know, a little small table at the end. And I don't really know what drew me. Well, I think what drew me in was, oh, this is an HBCU. And I'm like, okay, let me get more information on it. Of course, I went to the other tables, but I already had it in my mind, like, okay, Krystal, you want to go to an HBCU. Um, so it was, I definitely have to give thanks to my sister. I never really thought about that, why I even went to an HBCU. So I'm glad you asked me that question. But yeah, my sister, I definitely have to give thanks to her, because if it had not been for her starting the legacy for
Yeah,
me, my future kids and their future kids, HBCUs would not be in our family, ingrained in our history. So I'm thankful.
that's good. So, since you had access to your sister's process with going to college, how
Mhm.
prepared did you feel with applying to college and knowing the options that were available to you?
I will say I do not think I was as prepared. And I think that solely has to do with two things. So, one, again, I have a single mother who's never really applied to colleges. My sister, I believe, from what I can remember, she kind of did it all on her own. And I know she didn't want to burden my mom with trying to figure it out, because my mom was still raising me. Me and my sister are 7 years apart. And
Okay.
I wasn't the easiest child to raise at the time. So I get it. My sister probably, she knew that she needed to get out and have a career where she can provide for herself, and not have my single mother, who had been providing for us, continue to do it as we're adults. So I will say that my mom did not know, exactly when I should start applying to colleges, what scholarships to look for specifically for Black students and HBCUs. She didn't know really about the FAFSA thing. Like, we went through it, and I was confused reading it. I know she was confused reading it. Um, and my guidance counselor at school, if I wasn't, what I can remember, if it wasn't like a top tier, I'm getting like a full ride academic scholarship, or I'm not like the world's greatest basketball player, they
Mhm.
really didn't hone in on some type of college prep program. They had the dual enrollment thing, but I really still didn't understand that, because it wasn't explained to me in a way that I feel a guidance counselor should really go through the steps of college application and doing your FAFSA and understanding their specific scholarships for ethnic groups. Like, there are so many different scholarships out there. And I say this because I was actually a guidance counselor for 2 years. And a part of my job, once I started in middle school, and I started talking to my eighth graders about, what schools are you thinking about applying to when you get to high school? A lot of my eighth graders that I spoke to were also students of color. Are
Mhm.
you thinking about college? Are you thinking about scholarships? Are you thinking about going on an academic full scholarship? Are you thinking about going on a athletic scholarship? And it started to get them to think about, oh my God, I didn't know that they had scholarships like this, so that they can prepare themselves when they go to high school. Even if no one is coming to them, they know the questions to ask. So
Mhm.
I didn't have anyone coming to me, and I also didn't know what questions to ask. So I just didn't. And me and my mom were left to kind of fend for ourselves. And I do say, I believe that I was behind in some way. So, like, applying for FAFSA, I probably waited to the last minute, because I didn't know it was like a start date and an end date. I didn't know if I applied to college, I needed to get on top of, like, getting my housing together. I was just completely, really, me and my mom grew up in college together, really. And I stayed home, of course, because it's in South Florida. So I was right there. So I always had the net of going home if things didn't work out. Whereas my sister, she went 7 hours away to Tallahassee. So she really had to fend for herself and figure it out. So I'm thankful for my mom, but I also do, I apologize to my mom, because she shouldn't have had to do that. She's never gone to college. She didn't get the experience to do that. My mom is from the Bahamas. She came to the United States in junior high school. So she doesn't know, the nuances of those things. My grandmother was still in the Bahamas when my mom came over here. So my mom was really like the first person to do it. She was setting the tone. So I do sometimes think back and I'm like, I do get frustrated sometimes thinking back on it, but then I'm just like, your mom didn't know, Krystal. She did not know. And there was nobody calling her. There was no one sending emails like how, I send emails for my students to do college prep. There was no one doing that for her and no one telling me, Krystal, this is what you need to take home to your mom. So it was definitely a ride. And I do say that me and my mom, we grew up together as I went through college for sure.
I've spoken to some other students in the past, and they also said that their guidance counselors weren't very helpful with the college preparation process.
Yeah.
And they also attended a predominantly white high school, so
Mm.
much so that their guidance counselor had no idea that HBCUs were even a thing. Right. And so, how did your experience with that in high school shape your expectations of what college was going to be like, as far as like faculty assistants, what the culture of your campus was going to be like, coming from a school that didn't really give that to you as a student?
Right. So in high school, I can agree with that story. It was not readily available. The information was there. I don't believe that they knew what HBCUs were. It wasn't like how it is now where you walk into a school and you have a wall of HBCUs. And I love seeing that so much. But I will say I was fortunate enough to have a math teacher, African American woman who math is not my subject at all, so she really took a liking to me, so much so that she was like my village in high school. If I needed something, if I just was having a bad day, she could look at me and know. So I kind of took her and expected, okay, I'm gonna have a bunch of Miss Montgomerys when I go to college. And that's exactly what it was. So much so sometimes I thought it was like overwhelming. I'm like, whoa, like, but it was so great because I felt like even in math in college, again, math is not my subject. And, I'm a freshman, it's the HBCU, it's so much to explore. Life, it was great in college. But to have teachers, especially in the math department, come to me and literally say, I know math isn't your subject. How can I help you pass this course? What can I do so that we can both, compromise and make sure that you're learning something, you get something out of this course, and that you can matriculate on and not have to come back to math 101 as a senior in college. And I was just like, why are you talking, like, why do you care so much? It was almost kind of like, my math teachers in high school outside of Miss Montgomery would have just been like, get it together. Like, just kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that the math teacher in college was trying to like hand me something, because she still was on me. Like, I had to do the work. I had to go to her office hours. I had to really put in the work. But it was like she said, I know math isn't your greatest skill. And it was like she saw me when she said those words, because this is a big class. I'm a freshman. I'm just a number at this point. So for her to see me enough to say, like, I know this isn't your subject, so let me know how I can frame it and shape it and make it so that you understand what I'm doing, or how can I change the way that I'm teaching it so that you understand what's going on. And it's those connections and those conversations that I had with my professors in college, really all throughout college, that helped me understand that this is more than just school. This is really your community.
Yeah.
And at any point you need some assistance, or you don't understand something, or you want to ask a question. That was my biggest thing all throughout school. I was the kid who felt so inferior to my guidance counselors, my teachers who were of different races, because I just didn't feel comfortable enough to ask the questions that are okay to ask. They're normal to ask. But in college, I had that safe space to say, I don't really understand, what's going on. Or I've been trying, I've been going over this time after time after time, and I'm still not getting it. And I get the look of, okay, how can we help you? Like, how can we work this out so that you understand it, as opposed to, go to study hall and figure it out. So it was like a whole new world for me, but it was also like, I finally found a community. I felt so relieved. I felt like I can actually make my mom proud. Like, I can graduate and get this, done. It was all those nights of like, okay, my mom is paying so much money for me to go to this school. We went through so much to apply, to get a scholarship, to get this done, to get that done. How am I going to prove that I've done what I needed to do here? And it was a sigh of relief to just always go into seminars, to go into classes, and have people pour into you. It's almost equivalent to like church. I'm going to my community of church, and Monday through Saturday, I've had the roughest day, working with, in the corporate setting or whatever, where, your big boss is someone who doesn't understand culturally what you might be going through. But on Sunday, you're able to go in and be poured into and say, like, you got this. You can go out into this world and be the greatest you that ever comes across to people. So I'm excited. I was excited for sure.
That's good. So let's talk about the demographics of your college professors, because I think people assume that when you go to an HBCU, all of your faculty members are going to be Black, and
Right.
that's not the case, although
Right.
it's probably majority Black professors. But
Yeah.
can you clarify what the demographics of your professors were in college?
So I had, of course, Black professors, but also we had Spanish professors. There were white professors as well. And then a few foreigner, like maybe Indian, or, I believe it's Indian or Pakistani. And we had a wide range, but majority Black, of course.
Okay.
And it's so funny that you asked this question, because the other day I had a group session with my ladies, and I asked them, how important is it for you to have a culturally competent therapist? Or is it important for you to have a culturally competent therapist? How important is it for your therapist to be Black? Or if they are white, how important is it for them to be culturally competent? And I think when you ask me that question, I respect and really pay homage to those professors who were of other race or other ethnicities, but their competence, their cultural competence, it spoke volumes. Like, they understood what it meant to be a non-Black, non-African American professor at an HBCU, helping predominantly Black students, you know, go out into the world and be great. They understood it wasn't just like, oh, let me help this little Black child get, be better, and kind of just pat the back. Oh yeah, this poor Black child. But it was just like, you can be great. And I could, one of my professors told me I could be working at a PWI, but I know that there's greatness here at this small private HBCU. And your greatness is not defined by, you going to a PWI. You can get this greatness, this education here, and still be great after you graduate. So it was just the understanding that these professors were culturally competent. They were aware of the stigmas. They're aware of the setbacks, all the things that we will have to face going out into the work field. Them just being culturally aware and able to sit here and treat us like students, like the fair students, and understanding that teaching us is not like some give back, give to charity sort of thing. Like, we're able to learn too. And we also could have been at a PWI, but we've chosen to be here at an HBCU where we can celebrate our Blackness, where we can enjoy our Blackness, get an education, and then give back to our own community. So I, have all the respect for the professors that I had that were of other ethnicities that truly understood what it meant to be culturally competent.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that because I think a lot of people assume because you have a Black teacher or professor that that automatically equals cultural competence, and that's
Yeah,
not always the case.
yeah,
So when you say phrases like "this professor saw me," what does that mean on a practical level when you
yeah.
have professors of different races or even Black professors? What
Hmm.
does it mean for a professor to see you,
Yeah.
practically speaking, outside of the classroom and within the classroom?
Yeah. I really believe in that moment, even with that math teacher, although that math teacher knew that I wasn't the greatest at math, they knew that greatness was in me.
Mhm.
And understanding that really everyone's subject matter is, their subject matter is not the same. Their preferred subject matter and what they can perfect is not the same in each student. So I really believe that just understanding that although I may not be the greatest and the smartest and the wisest at math, there is greatness in me. So how can I get you over this obstacle or over this hurdle to get you to that greatness? And that spoke volumes for me because again, I'm a shy girl. I'm quiet. If I had a question in the past, I'm gonna just show down and be quiet and not say anything, suffer in silence, and then ultimately fail a class. And who knows what that could have spun into. Like, I could have failed this course. I could have said, you know what, I'm just going to drop out because I don't want to fail any more classes. It's all a rolling effect of things. So the fact that this teacher said, I see you, we're going to get you through this because I don't want to see the effects of what could happen of you possibly failing this class and losing the confidence that you had enough to come to college, right?
Mhm.
So just being able to know that there's greatness in me. And I think even for me, when I was a guidance counselor, that was my thing. I knew that some of my students suffered here, they lacked here, they didn't understand this, they couldn't get this, they didn't have these resources. But every student that I had, and I believe that they would say this, I made sure I see the greatness in you. How are we going to get you to that greatness? What tools can we use to get you to the greatness? It may not be like Susie and it may not be like Anthony, but how are we going to get you to your design and destined greatness? And I believe that that's how and why I always felt seen, understanding that people understood that there's greatness in me. Even though there are so many other ways that I'm flawed, I'm still great in this one area. And if I can just have a chance to be seen and
Mhm.
understood, then my greatness will shine and prevail against all. So,
Good. That's so good. Okay, so you mentioned that you went to Florida Memorial and Barry University. So
mm-hmm,
with FMU being an HBCU and Barry University being a PWI,
mm-hmm.
although I think they have a fairly high percentage of Black students there, you can correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
So, but it's not an HBCU. So did you see a difference in the interactions between your professors at Florida Memorial compared to your professors at Barry University? And what was that difference? Or if you
Mm-hmm.
found any similarities?
Mm-hmm. So I found similarities and differences. The difference, I would say, is the connection. It was very like student teacher. There was really no rapport building. It's like, turn this paper in. This is what you have to do. This is how you get it. It was, and I kind of felt myself going. I could have gone back into that shell of just shy girl, not asking any questions, really reserved and just scared to speak up. However, I'm so grateful and thankful that I had the foundation from Florida Memorial to know, like, you deserve to be here, Krystal. So ask your questions, rebut the things that don't make sense, speak
Mhm.
up for yourself, advocate for yourself and the future students of the social work program. Because when you leave and another student comes and does the same thing, that professor is going to understand, wow, this is a running trend. So let me change the way that my dynamic of what I'm doing, or let me try to see how I can make it better or evolve it a little bit. So it definitely helped me to speak up more and know that you're in the right place. You made it this far. You graduated with a GPA above 3.0, and you're going to do the same thing at this PWI. So you're able to be in the spaces where faces may not look like you, but you're able to do the same thing and possibly even do it greater. Um, So that was one difference. And then, so the similarities I would say is because Barry is a private small institution. I was in a social work program, so specifically all my classes were clinical based, therapy and mental health and all the things. So I did have support and community in my cohort. And
Okay.
I will say I appreciate that because HBCUs, we have our cohort, and we have our Black community, and we all look alike. So that already is like a sigh of relief. Like being able to see someone like, oh my God, you look just like me. We have the same haircut. We got, our moms are from the same island, something. But when you're at a PWI and it's a lot of faces that are different, you're kind of like, oh, I got to see how she's going to be. And it's very just, everyone's nervous and scared on the first day. I was just like, I'm probably just going to go to class and go home. Like that's how it's going to be. However, I got into the class, and still to this day, I'm in a group chat with some of the girls that I graduated with from Barry. And we always have that connection as, we're the social work girls from Barry University. We went through the fast track program where we got our master's degree in 7 months. It was rigorous, but we all did it together. And, we still check in. We probably don't talk every single day, but we have that group chat. We send happy birthday wishes. One of our girls just got married. One of our girls just, got her license in the state of Pennsylvania. So we touch bases and we stay connected. And I will never forget one of the professors. She's an older professor. I don't know if she still works there. Older white lady. And towards the end of our course with her, she made a statement. She said, I know you guys are close now, but don't expect your closeness to remain, once you leave college. And I was like a little irritated because I'm just like, why would you, like, that's not something that you say to end what's a beautiful thing. Like, it was like, we have a mixture group of girls, Spanish, Black, white, European, like we have a good group together, and you're basically trying to tear it apart. And I'm like, it just almost, I want to kind of sometimes go back to Barry and say, look, we're still all connected. Like, we don't talk every day, but we're still connected. We support each other. We go and ask questions about licensure, about life. One of my girls just called me the other day about starting a business. So it was almost like, you go out into the world and you're this, for me, I'm this Black woman who is also a businesswoman. I'm in social work, and I have this white corporate America who's telling me, don't expect for it to be the same as it was before. So it was so bothersome. And I think, and that's why I still remember the exact words to this day, because I was so irritated. I'm like, you don't end a beautiful thing like this rigorous 7 months that we've gone through on a negative note. You could have said, it's so beautiful that you guys have cultivated a relationship. I pray that, or I hope that, you guys continue this moving on, or always remember these times and you can lean on your friends, something. But you don't end a class by saying, don't expect to remain friends after this or stay connected. I just want to give you guys a reality. We don't need you to give us reality. Reality hits us at the door every single day. We don't need that. So, but yeah, those were the two main differences and similarities between Barry and Florida Memorial. I enjoyed both. Of course, I've cultivated more of who I am and who I will raise my future kids to be, who I raise my mentees in the community to be from my HBCU, because I'm more connected. I feel more relatable to that. But of course, I'm going to add in a little bit of the berry sprinkles, but always my foundation. I always say, God is my foundation, and my HBCU is my foundation on top of that. So I'm very grateful for both.
I think that's a beautiful depiction of fictive kinship that you describe with your cohort that not every community has. And although I think that your cohort has different races in it, you all were
Yeah.
able to develop that sort of kinship and community that
Yeah.
still I guess, withstood the test of time, right? And I
Yeah.
think another beautiful example of kinship we find in religion, which you talked about earlier with your faculty member or your relationship with your teacher being like going to church, right? Being
Yeah.
like a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
So with FMU, I know that they have a Baptist affiliation and Barry is a Catholic school.
Yeah.
So with those religious backgrounds, did that have any bearing on your experience within college?
Um, I will say no, particularly for me because I am heavily rooted in my Christian background and my beliefs and my faith. My dad he's now a pastor of a church, and he was a minister all throughout while I was in college. My mom was raised in the church, and my sister's very spiritual as well. So for me, my foundation truly is and was God. Like I'm always going to scripture, I'm going to pray, I'm asking somebody to pray for me. So regardless of, Barry being Catholic and FMU being Baptist, although I appreciated the Baptist from FMU and I was in the gospel choir and I did all the things and we went to church together, I appreciate that no matter where I was, it could have been FMU, it could have been Florida Memorial, FAMU, it could have been Barry, wherever. My religion was always what have known it to be, which is a mixture of non-denominational and Baptist, but ultimately like my connection and relationship with God and prayer and really just staying connected with family as well. And that really helps me get through college because some days I'm just like, God, I do not know how I'm going to make it, whether it's financial needs or just passing a class or passing a test. But I definitely held tight to my spiritual beliefs and my faith and my religion and understanding that that's what I needed to get through both undergrad and grad school at the time. So I appreciate both backgrounds from those schools, but my personal faith is what really got me through those times.
Okay. So overall, what lessons do you think you've learned while in school, both at FMU and Barry, that you are now applying to your professional life as a mental health worker and your personal life?
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is, and this is, I knew it in college, but I really honed into it as I'm in therapy and I've been a therapist and in the field. Perfection is the perfect lie. So
Mm,
understanding that you're going into college, you're going into these HBCUs or even PWIs to cultivate and learn and grow into the person that you're meant to be. A lot of my earlier years in college was me holding a perception that I felt like I needed to hold on to in high school. And the mask was up, and I just had to hold on to this mask to make sure that I was perfect and everything was okay and I was good and I was running on E. So, and even after I graduated, I still held on to that kind of perfectionism. I have to get it right. I have to be the perfect HBCU grad. I have to be the perfect PWI grad. I have to be the perfect social worker, the perfect child, the perfect daughter, the perfect sister, all the things. But understanding now my mistakes and my all the failed classes in college and all the late nights that I had to finish an assignment or write a paper, all those things are what cultivated me into the woman that I am today, the mentor that I am today, the motivational speaker that I am today, the mental health advocate that I am today. It helped me to understand, Krystal, your greatness comes from your imperfections because you learn from them, you've grown from them, and you've also learned how to be in love with your true and authentic self. And ultimately, I'm grateful specifically for my HBCU for that, because there were so many times where, we look at ourselves and other people and we're just like, oh, but she does it better, or he does it better, or he likes her better, so I have to do it this way, or this teacher likes them better, so I have to be this kind of student. And, although sometimes I tore myself down, I understand like being Black and being in an HBCU and being in an environment where you're surrounded by your people is about the differences. The beauty is in the differences in us all. And even at a PWI, the beauty is in the differences within your Black community in that PWI.
Mhm.
So I have definitely learned to just embrace all the imperfections, embrace all the beauty that is within me, and also embrace it in my brothers and my sisters, because we all are great together. We're making this world great together, and continuing to cultivate the conversations for the future students of HBCUs is definitely a mission of mine. I know it's a mission of my friends and my family. My mom is even, she's never gone to an HBCU, but she's a product of, we're a product of her. Like, we went to HBCUs, and essentially she's like, I'm an HBCU grad too. And I'm like, that's right, you are. Like, you have to march in that. And my dad is too, and my grandmother is, we've started something great. And I had this conversation with someone the other day. He went to a PWI athlete, and he's like, how was that experience? Like, I'm an athlete, and I'm always going to be an advocate for athletes going to a PWI, because those are the D1 schools. And I said, and I pray one day that the HBCUs are going to be the schools that the athletes go to. And I told him, I'm like, when I have kids, HBCUs are going to be in the house. Like, it's going to be a topic of conversation. And regardless of if my children are sports fanatics, they're athletes, academic, whatever, the top of the conversation or the top of the list is going to be, let's go visit some HBCUs.
Right.
You can be just as great of an athlete at an HBCU as you can at a PWI. You can be just as great of an academic scholar at a HBCU as you can be at a PWI. So understanding that, because I was in it and saw it, and I see the growth of myself from then to now, I know that this is going to be a continual conversation. So I'm definitely forever grateful for my beautiful HBCU.
That's good. So part of your mission is also to be a voice for those who haven't found their voice yet, right? So what practical steps do you have for the student who finds themselves in the shoes that you were in, being maybe in high school, not knowing the different options available to them, or not having someone in their family who has gone to college and had an example like you have? What
Yeah.
steps can they take, or what advice would you give to them?
My biggest advice is finding a mentor of some sort. So I didn't have a mentor in high school or college, but I like to think that my sister was my mentor into college and HBCUs and like all the things HBCU. But I would say finding someone, and sometimes you can't find someone, right, if you don't have the access to it. But I would also recommend going to those websites of HBCUs and reaching out to someone. I feel like now HBCUs in the world today are at such a comfortable place, understanding the importance of, like, we're important to our community, and we need to make sure that our students understand that they are important as well, and they should experience this community. So even if you can't find it in your own community, go online, research the departments that you want to potentially major in, reach out to those department heads or those faculty or whoever, and see, hey, can I come on campus and have a tour? Can I reach out to you whenever I have questions? That's how you cultivate connections. That's how you cultivate mentors and mentees, and understanding, wow, this person helped me when I was a junior in college, junior in high school. Now I'm a junior in college, and they're about to watch me walk across the stage. Those are pivotal moments in our kids' lives. And I personally wish I would have done that. However, I get that my journey is my journey. So if I'm giving any advice to future HBCU students of the world, find your person and really hone in on also being that person for someone else. So for me, I have mentorship programs coming up within my business, and I also have some initiatives that I have for young women of color, to help them really matriculate the right way and cultivate mentorships within their community, within their space, and understanding that they are seen and they are great and their greatness can shine.
That's so good. Thank you. Krystal, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I have no doubt that those that are listening gained a new perspective, gained new insight, whether they're students, professors, educational agencies, whatever it is, I'm sure they gained a lot of value from you sharing your experience. And so before we wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit more about the projects or businesses that you're working on and how people can stay connected with you.
Yes. So I have a motivational speaking business. It is KC Connects. And what I do is I really focus on, again, healing and wholeness for women of color. I'm all about making sure that our people, specifically women for right now, are understanding that you can be great, you can be educated, you can be Black, you can be just amazing in this world, and also focus on being whole and being healed and not moving forward in survival mode. You're moving forward in you're thriving in the world, right? So that's one thing that I have. I also have a podcast. My podcast is called Thriving with a Sprinkle of Depression. I'm currently on season 2, and it is just all conversations on the basis of mental health and my experience with mental health. I have a bunch of different guests that come on that talk about different topics, spotlighting and highlighting how they're thriving through their mental health. So that's another thing. And then do have some initiatives coming up, but they are still in the works. So if you just follow me on Instagram, KC under 2 underscores MSW, and KC is KAYC __ MSW. You will get all the news and all the things and all the events that are coming up very, very soon in this year. I'm super, super, super excited to just be a voice in the community, for our younger babies, for our older babies, just to really understand that we're all great and we're going to leave a mark on this world. So I'm super, super excited for everything that's coming forth for KC Connects.
Awesome. And I have shown your information on the screen for those that are watching. And for those that are just listening, I'll also include it in the show notes. So be sure to take a screenshot of this, share it with everyone you know so that they can stay connected with Krystal, who also goes by Casey, which I completely forgot.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So Krystal or Casey, but
Yes.
regardless, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you.